It was the scientific combination of the high wind shifting the water and the sand rising from below. If we were playing Jeopardy and that were the answer, what would be the question? Well, there's two options. Let me repeat the answer. It was the scientific combination of the high wind shifting the water and the sand rising from below. Question number one, what made the Reed Sea part? Or another correct answer would be, what caused the Ever Given cargo ship to become stuck in the Suez Canal? Tonight, on this seventh day of Passover, our Torah portion includes the Song of the Sea, which Moses and Miriam sang with the Israelites after the freed Hebrew slaves fleeing from Egypt and Pharaoh's army safely reached the far shore of the Sea of Reeds. This song celebrates God's role in bringing us out of Egypt to freedom. Serendipitously, just prior to Pesach, we witnessed a cargo ship weighing around 200,000 tons and carrying over 20,000 metal containers by the name of Ever Given to get stuck in the Suez Canal, which is in Egypt, and released during this past week of Passover, Zman Cherutenu, the season of our liberation. Ironically, the conditions under which the ship got stuck sound a lot like the conditions which were present when the sea parted, freeing the Israelites to walk across on dry land. Each Passover, we're not only supposed to tell the story of our ancestors, we're supposed to see ourselves as if we personally came out of Egypt. In the Haggadah, we read quotes from the Torah that give us a personal connection. We recite the whole door. In each and every generation, a person is obligated to see oneself as if you yourself left Egypt, as it states in the Torah in Exodus, and you shall explain to your child on that day, for the sake of this did the eternal God do this for me in my going out of Egypt. Not only our ancestors did the Holy One, blessed be God, redeem, but also us. Together with them did God redeem. And we quote another passage from Deuteronomy, and God took us out from there in order to bring us in, to give us the land which God swore to our ancestors. The word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim, which means from the narrow places. When we speak of our freedom from slavery, we speak literally and metaphorically of the liberation from that place of constriction to a wide open space. What got us out of Egypt? We speak of the punishing plagues which God thrust upon Pharaoh and the Egyptians, and which persuaded the Hebrew slaves to follow Moses and his invisible God. But before the plagues came, it was the voices of the Hebrew slaves crying out to God that inspired God to act at that moment during our hundreds of years of slavery. As we recall in the Haggadah, that verse from Deuteronomy, chapter 26, verse 7, which says, we cried out to the eternal God, the God of our ancestors. God heard our voice. God saw our persecution, our toil, our oppression. In the New American Haggadah, which is edited by Jonathan Safran Foer, the following commentary illuminates this verse of our crying out to God and God's response. It says, God forgets. A shocking idea. God chose us and then forgot us. Only by wailing did we remind God of our existence. But God's problem is our problem as well. We are masters of forgetting about prejudice and unfairness, wars and genocides, hunger and misery. We're busy, we're overwhelmed, we're callous. So what reminds us of injustice in the world? Wailing, protest, complaining. Suffering in silence is not a Jewish virtue. Judaism teaches us that we should not remain silent, nor should we go it alone. Today, as we see ourselves as personally coming out of Egypt, we also think of the other Egypts, the modern places in which we have been stuck. And what do we do when we're stuck? Do we, like our ancestors, only cry out to God? Perhaps you've heard the story. One rainy season, a pious man who lived in a 2-story house near a river experienced a major flood. Warnings advised residents to evacuate. As a jeep drove by the man's house, a person called out to him, "Your life is at stake. Get in the jeep. Let us help you evacuate." "No," the man replied from his doorstep. "I have prayed to God. The flood won't get me. God will take care of me." But the waters continued to rise, and soon the man was on the 2nd floor. A boat came by the man's house, and a person called out to him, "Your life is at stake. Get in the boat. Let us help you evacuate." "No," the man replied from the 2nd floor. "I have prayed to God. The flood won't get me. God will take care of me." And the flood continued to rise. The man went up to the roof to avoid the rising water. A helicopter hovered over his house, and using a megaphone, the pilot called out to him, "Your life is at stake. Grab the rope ladder. Let us help you evacuate." "No," the man replied from the top of the roof. "I have prayed to God. The flood won't get me. God will take care of me." What happened? The flood rises. The man drowns. In Gan Eden, the man says to God, "I prayed to you. I thought you would take care of me, and you let me die." To which God replies, "I sent you a jeep, a boat, and a helicopter." We cannot merely cry out to God. We need to recognize when God is offering us a helping hand and accept it. Perhaps when we are stuck, we try to go it alone. And maybe we can free ourselves. But how much easier might it be if we have others assist us, guide us, encourage us, support us to get out of that difficult place? When God sends us other peoples, when we're stuck in difficult situations, as we sometimes say, between a rock and a hard place, and then allies, helpers offer us real help to get us unstuck, we should say, "Yes, thank you. I can use your help." The Ever Given, that huge cargo ship, was freed not by struggling alone, but only with the help of others. According to one news report, numerous workers dredged 30,000 cubic meters of sand, enough to fill about a dozen Olympic-sized swimming pools. The ship's stern was freed on Sunday, and the bow was removed from the canal bank on Monday. A dozen tugboats then dragged the ship back into the middle of the canal. Sometimes we are able to free ourselves from difficult situations. However, other times we need to turn to others who will help liberate us. This coming Thursday, we observe Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. We not only remember the 6 million Jews who perished, we also acknowledge the survivors, who decades later are so few in number. Many survivors who have shared their stories tell how they could not have done so were it not for the help of others. This is one of the messages that the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center teaches, especially in the face of hate and genocide. We must be upstanders. We must not only cry out, we must do something and help others when they are in need. During this pandemic, many of us have felt alone or have known others that have felt isolated. We've also witnessed how it feels when one person has picked up a prescription or bought groceries or provided a meal for another or something similar, or sent a card or joined a video call or simply picked up the phone to talk. These past 12 months have been a narrow place, and some people are beginning to feel the hope of reaching a wider space as more and more individuals are vaccinated, but we still have a way to go before we are all out of this pandemic Egypt. As our prayer before the Micha Mocha that we read sometimes on Shabbat in our Mishkan Tefillah reminds us, there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. When we find ourselves in difficult, tight places, when we get stuck in life, we can pray to God for help. We can cry out, but we can also turn to others and be the one to help others so that none of us has to go through it alone. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, God, our God of our ancestors, as we mark this last day of Passover, help release us from our modern day Egypts. Encourage us to cry out for help and inspire us to help others. May we then together know true freedom. Amen.
We rise as we're able.
able for Aline.
Jinx.